Welcome back to Exquisitely Aligned, where we know the answers are on the inside. And I like to highlight amazing people around the world who've had experiences that bring forth so many incredible, maybe inventions, wink, wink, like today, books, etc. I'm Gina Meyer Vincent, your host, and today I'd like to introduce you to my new friend. Jenny De Leon is the visionary behind Repeatable Travel Systems. Most of you know I love to travel, so this is right up my alley. She is the visionary behind Repeatable Travel Systems, an ingenious solution redefining how you travel with your favorite skincare products when you fly carry-on. As a seasoned business consultant who has traveled extensively, Jenny experienced firsthand the challenges of maintaining her skincare routine while on the go so she could show up looking and feeling her best. Unwilling to compromise, which I love that, Jenny embarked on a journey of innovation to make traveling with your favorite skincare products easier. Her relentless pursuit of a solution that marries convenience, which we all love, and effectiveness, which I definitely support, led to Repeatable. Welcome, Jenny. I am so happy to have you with me today.
Thank you, Gina. I'm glad to be here. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, so many things that I want to touch on, but let's start with the beginning, as I had read. A seasoned business consultant. If you can tell us, I know oftentimes these journeys evolve over time and some have twists and turns to them. And I was wondering if you can give us maybe the backstory.
Yeah, sure. So it's really interesting because where I'm at today, especially in my day job, I have no formal training for what I do as a consultant. I actually taught myself how to do it all.
I love that. Repeat that one more time. You did what?
I taught myself how to do the job, essentially. And there's a lot to this, so I'll just do the quick version. But
no, you can go deep. That's what we're here for, because that statement alone, in my opinion, could be an entire episode, you know?
Yeah.
So don't hold back, Jenny. Do share, because what I love to talk about or give a voice to is stepping into being intimidated and intrigued at the same time. And I have a feeling that this is what you're going to tell us about. So please do share.
Yeah, I have lots of stories about that. So, so back, this would have been, I don't know, 15 years ago, roughly. Mm-hmm. I was at a point where I had been fired from my job, laid off from multiple jobs. I hadn't worked for 2 years. And I was kind of at this place, like, what the heck am I doing with my life? Right. I was in probably my mid to late 20s then. Mm-hmm. And being unemployed, laid off, I had a lot of free time on my hand. And this was back when blogs were first coming out. Okay. Blogger, I think, was the only thing available. WordPress wasn't even a thing back then. And I was really interested.
Can you imagine that, right?
I know. I mean, we're saying, right? Yes. And so I was really interested in blogging because I wanted to talk about my journey. I wanted to talk about personal finance, and I wanted to talk about it all from the perspective of a single person, a single female, right? Because everything out there at that time was about families, and that just didn't relate. I couldn't relate to that. Right. So I knew nothing about websites, nothing about blogging. I, of course, didn't have any money to hire somebody for any of this because I was unemployed. Yeah. And so I just started teaching myself. I just started okay, if I do this, then this happens. If I do, and I did that for 6 months, probably somewhere in there, which led me to my first real project type job. In consulting, everything is project based. And so that led me to my first project based job. And from there, I just kept growing my skill set. I found a little niche for myself where I was really good at helping people understand processes and documenting what it is that they wanted. But what was also really funny about all that, and it still holds true today, is that every project I've ever been on, what people think they want from a technology perspective and what they actually end up with are not even the same thing at all, right? And so my job was to pull that information out of them, right? Elicit it, bring that truth to life. And, parts of that, you can't go read that in a book, right? You have to understand people. You have to understand, you have to read between the lines. You have to read the room. You have to understand is today a good day for them to talk about this when everybody's sitting here? And, so I got into consulting basically by teaching myself how to do it, how to do some form of technology. And then from there, I just kept learning. Yeah. And I was a consultant I still am, as my day job. It's been 12 or 13 years now, I think, that I've been in this type of role. And for a long period of time, I was a traveling consultant. So I was a person that got up at 3 a.m. on Monday morning, didn't get back until Thursday night at, midnight if I was lucky, every single week, right? Every single week. So what I found during that time, I mean, it was amazing because you got all the travel perks, right? All the hotel and the flight perks and everything, but the toll it takes on you as a person, anybody who's traveled extensively. Yeah. And what I found about my life at that time was, I was only home basically to home to get things done, basically Friday and Saturday. So if I had any appointments, generally it had to be done on Friday. Sunday was basically didn't even count because you had to go to bed so early that you were getting up so early on Monday.
At the crack of dawn. Or you stay up if you're young enough and energetic, you stay up till
that wasn't me. Yeah, definitely
not me either. Not me either.
And so what I found, so everything was like an assembly line, it felt to me at that point in my life, because I had to have things lined up. I had to call ahead of time. There wasn't really a lot of room for deviation of change plans because there wasn't time for it. And during that time, the big problem with traveling was, okay, how am I going to bring all this stuff that I want to bring every week? Right. Like I'm expected to go to these business meetings. I'm in front of clients. I'm worn out as can be from traveling, right? But I still want to show up looking good and feeling good. And I'm tired of choosing what I can and can't bring, right? I don't want to have to buy something at the client site every time I show up. I don't have to run out to the store. I was really tired of only certain products coming in travel size, containers, right? And these travel containers that you see, on the market today, these are way too big for just, a week's worth of travel, for example. And so I was like, well, surely I can do something better than this. Right. And so that's what started my journey with Repeatable. I mean, I was prototyping several things. I just kept fooling around with it and seeing what worked for me, seeing what I liked, seeing what I didn't. I talked to my friends who were travelers. And here we are today. I actually brought the idea to life.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And let's go back to teaching yourself, if you don't mind. And then we'll go more into just so, there's so many things we can talk about. But I love the fact that you saw the opportunity that time was available to you. And I think sometimes people miss that. They think I'm laid off or I'm without employment, however, whatever the situation, or I'm looking for a job without an income. This is terrible. And, but that free time is for us to make a decision of how often are we going to have that? Yeah. Not always often, right. Sometimes we believe we want it in retirement, right? When it's on our terms, at our point at a point in the life that we decided upon. I know I lost a job. I was in my late 20s. I think it was 28. And I was 28. So X amount of months earlier, I think it was 6 months earlier, my wedding was called off because I asked my fiance, how sure was he that he wanted to marry me? And he said 80%, because I'm a numbers girl. 80 didn't work. So that was it. I don't know if he called it off or I called it off, but anyway, it doesn't matter here nor there. But it was over. 80% was not going to cut it. That's not, no, and we were both young, no debt. I had a little tiny condo. I had a cat and a rabbit. Life was good. We both had jobs. We were healthy, la, la, la. So anyway, but 6 months later, I'm thinking, okay, I'm back on my feet after that crazy fiasco. I was a sales rep for a shoe company called Candies, which was owned at the time by Neil Cole, Kenneth Cole's brother. And, all of a sudden I lost my job, and it was very like, who am I? Single, dating, out with friends. Oh, hey, Jenny, what do you do? That was the question.
Yeah.
You may have had a glass of wine in your hand. You're at someone's lovely apartment, home, whatever, for a party. You're out listening to music. What do you do? And I was like, how do I answer that when I don't have a job currently? And it was all of a sudden I didn't have an identity, but then I had to take a step back like you and realize, okay, well, time is a resource too. Money is certainly lovely. It brings about a lot of freedom, but having this time to do whatever it is that I normally don't get to do, get to the gym regularly, blah, 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 whatever that be, meet a friend for lunch, even if it's for peanut butter and jelly, right? Because I was on a tight budget. But you get the point, you figure out a way. And so can you tell us a little bit, like, for me, it was, I think, definite loss of identity, nervousness, like, how long is this going to last before the next job comes? I mean, I can't even think of other things, but can you talk to that for a little bit before you had that enlightenment to like go forth and conquer and learn so well that you become an expert in your field?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this many times as I told this story. I think everybody should get fired once in their life to understand what you're made of, because it will humble you, and it will really force you to think about, well, who, because you said the question, who am I without the job? But then it's also the question, who do I want to be? Right. Because that's what I felt I used that time for, because I had been my whole, college and up till that point, my background had been in finance and banking. Like, that's just what I was good at. Math, numbers. I loved numbers. It came easy to me. I grew up in a family owned business. I helped my mom, in the office from, age 12 years old and up. And so for me, it was a question of, I knew I didn't want to do that anymore, but I was having a hard time letting go of that because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go next. Or, okay, so this is what I went to school for, and this is my background. How do I even start to, make a change? And this was back, like I said, 15-ish, 20 years ago, where it wasn't like today, where, recruiters were beating down your door, or that you had all these internet options to get ideas, right? It was not like that at all. And, so I did ask myself, well, okay, so, but what do you want to do? And I was, for whatever reason, very interested in project-based work, like technology, understanding how it worked. But I didn't want to be the person that was behind the computer developing or writing code necessarily. I wanted to be the person, like, at first, the only role I really knew was a project manager. So that's what I was, because that seems like it fit my skill set, right? Yeah. So, and I had a friend who worked at a company who I actually ended up going to work for, but she was the one kind of telling me, well, this is what they're looking for. Can you do this kind of stuff? And I was like, well, no, I haven't done it. And I don't, but I'll learn, I'll teach myself. So that's what I was doing with the website, right? It was a lot of that analytical, that problem solving, that if this, then that. That's like a, programming. Like, and so that's
math. That's a math thing too. So I always love, that's what I love, like, hey, kid, think about, if this happens, are you prepared? If that, not for like a catastrophe, but just to be like flexible. That's the if then that is really something that I think applies to everyone, everywhere, every day, Yeah.
It's like a life lesson kind of thing. Right?
Yes.
Learn how to be an adult in the world. And and so I remember, signing up for this blogger website, fooling around with it, just hours, staying up to like 2 and 3 in the morning, right? Playing around with it, changes this color, moves this line, whatever. And then I just kept doing it. Like, it was one of those things where, and I didn't really know what I was doing either. Like, it's not like I had laid out some formal plan for myself, right? But I think there was 2 things here. There was the willingness to do it, to learn, to teach myself. And there was the desire. There was the desire there where I was like, I don't want to go back to what I was doing before, but I have the desire to do something new. Now, obviously, I was single, living alone, so I had to support myself, right? So there was strong desire for me to get myself figured out so I could, move on to the next phase in life. But I do think, like you said, that maybe if people have experienced that, being laid off or unemployed, we're in such a hurry to get to the next thing instead of actually letting ourselves enjoy that time and take that space to figure out who do you want to be? Who am I? But who have I been? But who do I want to be?
Right, exactly. I like to think about, what do I want to explore next? I think we are each as unique as our fingerprint. And I love that, for me, that's being exquisitely aligned and owning that uniqueness, that exquisiteness. And for me, I like to say we have gifts and talents that are innate. We're born with them. And then at different times in life, we can choose if we want. I mean, we're very fortunate to live in a free will world. We can choose to use and explore and to play with them. And I love the words willingness and desire, because it's so true. And, one vision I had was, right, we always have these dichotomies of, if this, then that. But, you are fortunate to be single. I mean, yes, that does make the desire for income, but maybe if you were married with 6 kids, or a single mom with 6 kids, or even 1 child, or 6 dogs, more mouths to feed, maybe you wouldn't have had that flexibility to really get into what your desires for change were. Sometimes I think people feel like they're, I'm going to use the word trapped or locked in. I know those are really intense words, but that they feel stuck, maybe like, oh, this is what I've done all my life, I need to continue. And I'm like, heck no, everything we've done before plays in. We just have to maybe change the words on a resume, or CV, so that it suits. So I love the words willingness and desire, and staying up till 2, 3 in the morning. Clearly it was something that was fascinating to you.
It was, it was a puzzle to solve. And, I think, and even after I got a job, I still kept the website as a side project that I was working on. And I kept it for several years, and it earned income for me. It was, and it was great. It was still something I was using to continue to learn. I went to conferences, networked with people.
Wow.
It was a whole thing. And so I think when we think about changing careers or changing paths, I think we always feel like we have to just be so abrupt and do it immediately, quit the job, be poor, and it's like, no, actually you could do things on the side, right? You could do something part-time. You could do like I did with the website in the evening or the weekends when I had time. I mean, there's ways to do this stuff and still accomplish your goals that don't have to cause you pain or, some sort of financial burden. There's ways to do it.
I love that. And it's so true. I'm glad you brought that up. Years ago, when I was in my 20s, another girlfriend of mine who was in her 20s at the time, I like to still think she is, because then that makes me younger too. But she was in a field that she went to college for, was very good at, but it wasn't soul fulfilling for her. And so her desire was change, and she wanted to she went from environmental sciences, to art. And supporting the arts. She's she's a passionate collector. I told her one day I'm going to start bring bigger purses so I can start stealing her teapot collection, because it's just incredible. Never mind the other art. But anyway, I'm not going to give you her address because I'm afraid you might find her. But she was so smart. This was, if I'm 54, we must have been closer to 27. This was a long time ago, right? And you were talking about the internet now and the connect and working from home. This was not a thing back then.
Yes.
But she had such a strong desire that she ended up working part-time for both jobs. the job she wanted was available, but only part-time. So she went to her current job and asked to go part-time, and they let her. And what a risk as a single female who owned a house. So she had a mortgage. And she had 2 cats that were adorable, but she did it, and slowly but surely proving herself in that part-time job. She's still there today, and full-time, and has been promoted. And, those are the stories I love. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're stuck in anything. Because I like to see all the possibilities. And like you said, you brought up nights and weekends, and earlier you talked about staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning. I think when we're doing something we're passionate about, doesn't matter how old we are, we're willing to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning. I know I've done that with my deck of cards that we'll use later, but back in 2017, Mark would be like, okay, like, are you going to come to bed? I'm like, yes, but I just realized I have to, do a tweak on all 42 cards in this deck before it goes to China, la, la, la. And it was easy to stay up. Now, if you ask me to like steam his shirts or cook dinner for our family of 4 or, feed the cats, no, I wouldn't want to be up till 2 or 3 in the morning. But it's so true. We get this extra jolt of internal energy, not caffeine, to do those things. So that is awesome that you brought it up. And a second income, let's talk about that, or a second income channel, or a second, or like fun money, lunch money. I don't care what travel money, right? Because wink, wink for the travel. But let's talk about that for a little bit. Tell us your thoughts on that, and then we can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, multiple streams of income would be, ideal for everybody. I've done that, probably whatever, going on 15 years now, probably in some capacity, in various ways, through my blogs, podcasting, through, even back in the day, I'll say, before things are what they were today. I mean, and this actually, I think, was when I was not working. My friends and I used to go to yard sales and get clothes and sell them on eBay. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we were always doing like these entrepreneurial things to bring in extra money. I mean, I cleaned houses. I mean, so many things, right? There's so many things.
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate, like, it's really easy to get in the habit of just coming home after your job that maybe you're not thrilled about and you don't really like, and just sitting at in front of the TV, staring at the TV, staring at your phone, wasting precious hours of your life. Yeah. And then complaining that it's never changing. Well, how do you expect it to change? You're the force. You are the force. There's no other force that's going to come in and pick you up and carry you along. You are your own force. And it's, people don't want to hear that sometimes. It's when you put it all back in your own, put the ball back in your own court, so to speak, and you realize how much control you do have and how much power you have, then you start to wake up to your true self. It's, and I guess I could tell you another story about how I changed my life another time. If you want to hear that.
No, I mean, this is what it's about. We had very little agenda, right? And I said, I know we're going to have fun talking, because I can just feel it as I look through the camera and see you, that, but you're so spot on about knowing that we have this ability. We live in a free will world. It's sometimes, yes, we may have to peel ourselves up off the comfy sofa and put the bonbons back in the freezer. I'm joking. But, I know I've worked jobs where I was out of my head miserable, and it was in my field as a department store buyer, where I shared this on another episode, but I'll talk really fast like I'm in New York. So in New York, I was a department store assistant buyer. They moved me to Charlotte, where the headquarters were. And I loved what I was doing. It was so right up my alley, going to market, deciding what to bring to the 265 stores in the Southeast. And the environment that I worked in was toxic. Instead of seeing the other department stores, Nordstrom, so forth, as competition, there was competition within the office, and it was backstabbing. And, you know, in New York, it was different. If somebody didn't like you, they wouldn't say, hey, Jenny, let's go for a glass of wine tonight. They would just not say anything like, thanks, nice working with you. See you late. I'll call you when I need something else, or, you know, when I have a question. And, you know, it was very different there because people would say things with a smile, and the next thing you know, I felt stabbed in my back. Let's just say I felt. But I think that I finally figured out how miserable I was. I was no longer feeling like myself. So I got up early in the morning to go to the gym, walk the track as the sun was rising, came home, showered, and then went to work. That made me have a reason to get up in the morning. Yeah. And, you know, I did something fun at night for myself as well. I can't remember, every day was a little different, but just to, you know, I think I went inside the gym and used the equipment and socialized, you know, just because I was living by myself. And, I was like, this pays my mortgage. It puts gas in my car. And until I figure out what I'm going to do next, you know, which I did, but knowing that we have that control and power, and knowing that we have this energy. But do tell us another story. Yeah, because I'm sure there's a few.
Because when I'm listening to you talking though too, what I heard you say was that you created something for yourself in your life outside of the job, right? You didn't let the job be what consumed you. You had these other things.
After time, Jenny. Yeah. So this went on for a little bit. And then I finally said, okay, I can't, right? But yes, I finally came to that recollect, you know, that,
that you needed to do it. Yeah. Well, and so mine is similar in a job so this would have been a consulting job that I had back 6 years ago now, because it's been 6 years since I moved to Nashville. And I was, in the daily grind, right? Like all that group cared about was billing hours. It was billing hours, which was just exhausting. And I got to this point where I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I was commuting, 1 hour each way to the job in this job that it just felt too much pressure, way more than any of the other consulting jobs I'd ever had. And so I had the guy I was dating at the time, we had broken up. So all these things felt like they were just crumbling. Right. Yeah. And I decided, okay, I knew what I didn't want in my life, which was basically everything that my life was. And so I started asking myself, okay, then what do I want? What do I want my life to be? Right. Do I want to just keep complaining, or do I want something different? And so every day I would sit there and write in a notebook, like basically how my days went. My day goes so smoothly. I live a unhurried life, I think was the phrase that I used back then. I live an unhurried life. I live close to where I work. I work with these kinds of people. We have these types of relationships. I'm on this kind of project, right? Every day I did this. And it took about 3 months. And then I took a leave of absence from that job. And then I took a month off, just leave of absence. And I came to Nashville because I was like, well, am I moving here? Like, what do I want to do? And all these things started happening. Like, it was like, boom, like boom. I moved here. They called me about a job that I don't even think I ever applied. I don't even know how they got my resume, because I didn't even know the company. It ended up being a huge company here that was like, people were like, oh my God, how'd you get a job there? It's so hard to get in. I'm like, I don't know how I did it. Like the place I went to, like, and then my house sold in a matter of a minute. Like everything went so fast. And I came here, I had to find some place to live. And the guy that was showing me the Airbnb, it was like double what I was going to pay. I walked in the door and he's like, well, you only have to pay half of what I listed it for. And I was like, what? And it was just like, I described that time, like, as like the red carpet was rolled out for me. And the reason why is because I commanded what I wanted from the universe. I wasn't back here, oh, please, like with this begging energy, please, universe, give this to me. Please, may I have this? I really want this, but I'm going to only ask for scraps. No, that was done. Right. I was done with that. Right. I'm done living my life on the sidelines. And it's time for me to get what I want in this life, right? So step up, everybody, because I'm not playing around anymore, right? And I remember even the realtor I had, because the house I have now that I bought when I moved, it was the first house I looked at. Like, just again, all of these things kept lining up. And I remember I was like this with the realtor, and she's like, we had this saying where it was like, everybody get information, basically, like, because I'm coming through, get information, and this is how it's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you, first off, I had no idea what I was doing. I just did these things because they felt right. And I was in a place where I was so tired. But the amount of control we have and the amount of energy you can push out into the world on your own behalf is quite shocking if you've never done it before.
Right.
And I proved to myself that I could do this. I proved that I could decide what I wanted and get it, and then some, right? Way more than I ever even could have thought. And it's even now when I tell the story, like it almost seems like made up or something, because it just happened so fast and so much like amazing things happen. So when I think it's so important for your listeners to understand that they command the same level of authority over their own life as I did over mine, as you took over yours, right? Everybody has this. There is nothing special about me doing this other than I did it. Like it's free to anybody who's willing. But if you're going to be the person that's going to sit there on the couch and complain or scroll through your phone and say nothing ever changes, then don't expect much from your life, right? But if you're going to step up to your life, if you're going to decide this is what I want and you're going to go after it, the world will meet you there. It's just waiting for you. That's all.
Right. Well, that's what I like to say. It's waiting for you. You don't have to chase your dreams.
Yeah.
They're not running from you. They're waiting for you to be you and partner with them. So you would think that I had prepped you to be like for these stories, and they're just unfold. But I love that you share that. It is, I want to touch on the fact that you chose the positive route. You chose the inner knowing of who you are and what you, and like I wrote myself some notes. I love the fact that you said you didn't know what you were doing, but you knew it felt right.
Yeah.
And I think that it is easy for us to disconnect. It's easier. It happens that we disconnect from who we are and how we feel. I had a conversation with a few people recently, one on my show, one a client, about compartmentalizing things, that their childhood and then an early marriage, first marriage, led them to feel, they were traumatic. Let's just put it that way. And therefore their coping skills, even as a young age, allowed them to compartmentalize everything, so that if I put this in this mug and then in this glass and so forth, everything stays neat and clean. I don't feel anything. Yeah. I think that happens not only with people who survive trauma or been through trauma, but I think it happens just naturally, because we're supposed to be whatever a woman my age, I was going to say blood type. That's funny. I don't know why that came into my head, but my age, where I live and so forth, and when we disconnect, it takes time to reconnect. And when we reconnect and like you said, feel into everything and know it feels right. I'll share a story with you that I don't think you know, because we're new to each other, but in 2016, 2015, whatever the school year was, that our son, that summer, well, for a while, I had wanted to leave Charlotte, North Carolina. I came from New York. My husband came from DC. We met in Charlotte, married, had our son, adopted our daughter, and life was fabulous. But I was getting like, I need to be closer to the beach. I need to be closer to the water. These lakes are beautiful, but I really need ocean, and I need less winter, more like spring, summer, and fall. And so for years he kept saying, you need to live in California. And I was like, well, I really don't know California, so let's start going there a couple of times. And long story made short, I think it was 2015 or 16, Mark said, let's wait 4 years. Okay. Now the New Yorker in me, wait for 4 years, right? I'm like, 4 days. Okay. Not a problem. 4 weeks. Yeah, that's probably likely because I have to get the house on the market, right? 4 months. Yes, because we have to close on the house and find a new house. That would have been agreeable. But he said, let's let Kai do high school here. There's a great program, a great school that, he got accepted into, la, la, la. And so I did. But every minute of those 4 years was extremely long. It felt like eternity. And then, of course, little did we know, summer of 2020 would be just ideal because son is graduating high school, daughter is graduating K-8. Perfect time for us to move. Never knew the word pandemic, the word COVID, And so all of a sudden was our dreams like kind of falling apart. And I'll never forget my mother saying, she wasn't so gung-ho on us taking her grandchildren. Well, she has 7 grandchildren, but 2 of them away from her. But she said, why don't you just wait another year? And I was like, because that does not feel right. These 4 years have not felt right. Adding a 5th year totally doesn't feel right. And, the first, we sold we were under contract, as they would say in Charlotte, with a lovely family who wanted to buy our house, but hadn't sold theirs yet. And so they were applying for a mortgage. And then we had gone into escrow here in California, and both of those contracts fell apart. Our buyer's mortgage never came through because once it was called a pandemic, all the banks stopped everything that was on the table. And then our seller here in San Clemente, which is the house we didn't get, went into surgery, came out and said, I'm not moving. Here's your money back. And we were like, hey, wait, what? And then it's like you're looking at 2 things that crumbled and you think, is my mother right? Should I wait? But I was like, it still doesn't feel good. And like you, everything unfolded just so quickly with the new buyer. They were in a hurry. They wanted in. The house we were buying was vacant. They already moved to their new home. It was like,
the red carpet, right?
It was total red carpet across the country with 2 German Shepherds and 3 cats, 2 cars, 2 kids, and 2 adults driving because the animals were not allowed to fly anymore because of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't find anybody to pay to drive the animals across because of COVID. And then we had to find hotels that were open, that were pet friendly. It was just insane. And my husband looks back now, he's like, we should have vlogged the whole thing. And I was like, you know what, Mark? We were just so like, get me to California. Like, it's hot, get me to okay, it's thunderstorms. Okay, now we're back to hot, this. But yeah, that red carpet just went for 2,500 miles to get us to this house. And we found out later that we were the last showing. Within 2 days, the house went on the market Saturday at 8. We arrived Friday night, midnight, before the house went on the market, not knowing it was coming on the market. And we were the last showing Sunday at 4:30. And we wrote a really nice letter and made a clause that said we would, besides paying extra, we would pay $5,000 over the highest bidder. That's how bad we want your house. And we got it. But it was like, you get to the point where I went to bed and I said to Mark, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know if it's the right decision. I just felt like when we opened the door, when the realtor opened the door, my daughter and I looked in, the sun was coming off the pool through the house because there's a big door to the front door. And she said, this is our house. I said, yes. He said, I think you need to walk through before we make an offer. And I was like, just make an offer. My eyes are crossed. I'm like, I'm not even on California time. I'm so exhausted. And Mark's like, we need to walk through. But it's so, you hit that nail right on the head. And I think if we can, you and I together with different voices, different color hair, me being older, you being more attractive and younger and greater skin, that is something we have to remind ourselves and each other all the time, that like the power. And I love that you said, where did I write it? Was it for 3 months you were writing those? I'm going to use the word affirmation, but What word would you use to explain what you wrote?
To me, yeah, affirmation. It was more like my intentions, though. Like there was some,
yes,
there was some driving energy behind it. I would even say, I want this type of energy. I want to be this type of energy.
Yes.
And I can remember driving to work every day because I still had that commute and fighting with myself every day in my mind about, my mind was trying to tell me all the reasons why I couldn't have all those things.
Of course. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
I mean, so by the time this was an hour of berating myself, all the way to work. By the time I got to work, I would just be exhausted. And I'm like, but I kept telling myself, I mean, this would happen hundreds of times on that commute.
Yes.
I would tell myself, stop. That's actually not true. This is, and I would pivot, and this is what I'm focused on. And I think that's why having those intentions ready are so important, because when you know what you want, when your mind wants to wander and go into all the negativity, you quickly got something to pivot to. And that's important, because if you don't, you're just those stories get out of control, and we get lazy with our own minds. I still do it. This is not something you master. You do it once and it's mastered. No, through the seasons of your life, you will continue to have to master this with yourself. But when you have that, the other side of the coin, so to speak, what you really want available, then it's much easier to stop those negative voices and letting them just run wild. Like I did for the majority of my life.
Yes. And I just had a conversation with one of my clients where I told her, I may put my hand right up to the camera, which is not going to be attractive. I have very large hands, and just say stop. And then I want you to realize how you're self-sabotaging. What did you give it a word? Like you were saying, I asked her to do exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Write down what kind of energy you want to feel. I want to feel love towards my family. I want to feel, light and carefree. Whatever the words.
Whatever resonates.
Yeah, whatever feels, again, right. Whatever vibes with you, whatever is your truth and something you desire and what I believe you deserve. I think if you desire something, you definitely deserve it. But that coming from my yoga teaching days, we call it the monkey mind, and it can just spiral out of control. And the untruths that it tells us are huge, and ugly,
I remember
dark.
They are. And I remember when I finally understood, I first heard this, that that our thoughts aren't true. We don't have to believe everything we think.
Right.
I could not get over that. I was like, what do you mean I don't have to believe everything I think? My thoughts are true. And then I was like, my thoughts are not true. It was so shocking to me to come to terms with that. Even today, it's like one of those things I'm like, dang, I got to remind myself of that, and that what you touched on also though about deserving.
Yeah.
That is, and the whole reason why this, I believe, works with these intentions or deciding is because you're taking your power back. You're reclaiming your life. You're reclaiming where you once might have felt like a victim. It's putting a stake in the ground and being like, no more. That's not how this goes for me.
Right.
And that's what I would even say to myself. That's not how this goes. But that we have to believe that we're worth more, right? We have got to stop just accepting scraps or just accepting what we think we can have. We have to start going after what we actually want, and not this playing small business of thinking that, because so-and-so told you this or so-and-so told you that. No, take your own life back.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think as we do, like you've done, you inspire so many other people to do the same, right? Here, using your voice, being a guest, and sharing so transparently the journey that wasn't always easy, right? Yeah. I think that when we do that, we give others permission to dream those dreams and have those desires and write them down and feel them with every muscle of our hand, our arm, all the way through our shoulder, attaching to our heart and breathing, like the fire of our heart into it. I knew we were going to have so much fun because I could just feel it, even though I wouldn't let you talk
about this.
Yeah, don't tell me anything. Please don't tell me anything more. Let's discover it on camera. live and in real time. And I mean, we touched on so many things that really are powerful. And I think that when we're able to connect and stop the vision I get is the hamster on the wheel going round and round, like you were talking about, that commute and going to a job that maybe is paying for a lovely life, but yet not satisfying us, and things like that. But I do want to talk about you traveling. I mean, we could go into what we just talked about for probably 2 more hours, and especially the worthy thing, but I'm going to save that and ask you to come back. Because that is a huge, huge topic, deserving and worthy. But for now, let's go to you traveling. I love to travel. I'll be honest with you though, carry on. No, I just keep whatever I need for 24 hours in my carry on, because, well, I'll back that up. Oftentimes I would travel and be the guest yoga instructor for a week in someplace exotic and fabulous. So I had a ton of workout clothing, then what I would wear during the day, then what I would wear to dinner. So it was like all these, without having a washing machine, outfits. And I guess that kind of sparked me packing heavy, and I haven't gone back, but that's the truth of the matter. Luckily, the rest of my family, the other 3, usually do just carry on. So it's okay that we wait for my luggage and pray that it makes it there, because I don't fit into their clothing, nor do I look good in what they wear. But, traveling is so much fun, but there's nothing worse than not having, my lipstick or my lashes or my foundation. I wear foundation because I've spent way too much time recharging my solar powered battery. But, tell us a little bit how, or maybe share a story of how this, what happened to inspire you to go forward with your product. I know you showed us the, what are they, like 3-ounce size, if you have that again? Yeah.
So we all know the TSA liquids rule. I mean, everyone hates it. We've all been through it, where you're going through security. TSA is taking your stuff. They've thrown away a $60, $70, $80 product, right, that you just bought or, brought on that trip. And so not only are you out the money for the product, you don't even have the product when you arrive at your destination, right?
Right.
And what I dealt with traveling every week was I was absolutely not checking a bag, because I was not going to stand there and wait. Most of my travel was not direct, so I had multiple flights to get where I needed to go. So I would leave it, like I said, leave my house at 3 a.m. I wouldn't even get to the client site until 1 p.m. So it was a long, long day. Yeah. So and like you said, showing, like, the biggest thing, especially as a consultant, is I have to be in front of people, right? I'm presenting. I don't want to show up like without my makeup, without my skincare. I don't want to, like, I'm not one of those people that can go several days without washing their hair, right? That just doesn't work for me.
You're not coming in a ball cap, right? With sunglasses on.
Right. Right. And so it's bad enough I have to pack all these dress clothes, right? And make sure they're easy to iron or they don't wrinkle very, And so then on top of it, the skincare, right? This that we face as women, we want to look good. And so I developed Repeatable. And I just want to tell you about the name really quick, because people have asked me, and why there's no E on the end. And so what I was creating with Repeatable was a repeatable process. I needed something every week that I could fill up. I knew what I needed to fill up, or what I had already had. And all I had to do was fill it up and go. And so the name Repeatable came from a repeatable process. And the reason why there's no E on the end is because I was so this started like 6-7 years ago when I created this. So when you invent something, first off, you never think it's going to come to life. So it's a lot of fun at the beginning, right? Because it's all this like ideas and what if we did this? This would be really cool, right? And so with the name Repeatable, I was going to spell it out phonetically. Like when you look up a word in the dictionary and you can see how, and so I was going to spell it out phonetically as like the graph, as like the logo. But
Yeah.
then I realized, okay, that's really hard to try to write it out. Like I can't phonetically write it every time. I might lose people with that. So
Yes.
I had already bought the domain Repeatable Travel without the E. I'd already set a lot of stuff up. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep it without the E. That's a little bit different, but it still gets the point across. It's repeatable. So I'm going to show you really quick what it is, if you can.
Beautiful.
See. And so basically it's 6 pods that hold your different skincare products. And you can see that it comes with pre-printed labels that you can use. And these pods slide apart. Oops,
okay.
You can see I use this one for foundation. So there's a hidden spatula in here, which you can use to apply your products.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. And so then basically it all slides back into this tray. It's held together with magnets. And then all you have to do is stick it in your quart bag with all your other products and you're good to go.
Oh yeah. That's fabulous. And I mean, you mentioned earlier about not needing 3 ounces of something.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yes.
Even I was telling you, even having taught fitness for these resorts and it would be hot out, we'd be at the beach. So I was taking multiple showers in a day because of this. You're not still in a 7 or a 9 day trip. I didn't need that much product. And it really, to be able to save the space, to be able to save the product from maybe, I don't want to say losing its efficacy, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's sitting in not, you know what I'm saying? Something that was originally in a pump that now you're trying to squirt out 3 ounces of.
It's a lot of wasted products. And
exactly.
So the problem this is solving is better packing for your quart bag when you want to take a carry-on. What I got really frustrated with was I would have to pick and choose what products I was going to take. And I was tired of that. I didn't want to do that anymore. And so, and also again, as I mentioned, there's only certain products that come in sample sizes, right? And sometimes those are really expensive. Like I don't want to.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
I already bought the product.
Sample size, but I usually never bought them because I didn't want to. Coming from a department store retail background as a buyer, I knew what cost was. So wholesale, and then what their cost is. Usually, you can figure out their cost, the wholesale, the retail, and when you're paying for that, mini version. It's expensive because the bottle, the packaging, doesn't really go down with the amount of product. Yes, but I'm cheap in that way, so I would not.
And if you're traveling regular, you have to keep rebuying it. And the other thing, as you mentioned, with those 3-ounce bottles, what happens is, for whatever reason, all of those seem to be made with like the worst labels in the world because the labels always fall off. Yes. And then you get home and you have all this product and you don't remember which is which. And so I think it's this, but I'm not sure. Right. And you try to smell it and I'm like, well, I don't even know. So forget it. And then there's all that wasted product. Right.
Yes.
And so that there was a lot of things I was trying to eliminate with this, but the main thing was giving women, especially women business travelers who are gone, because this is good for, 2 to 4 nights, I would say. So a normal business traveler, if you're traveling during the week, it's good for that amount of time. And I mean, there's a lot of other uses too, but it was to eliminate that problem of having to choose, having to feel like, when you show up to your project site or your client site, that you're not looking or feeling your best, right? It's that confidence and it's that, I want to look and feel complete even when I'm traveling.
Yes. Especially when I'm traveling, that's, how I feel. Like someone said to me, we were somewhere and like, oh, you're so dressed. And I was like, I'm away on vacation with my husband. My kids were young at the time. So we really didn't go out. I mean, we would have to have a babysitter at that time to go out to a nice dinner. So that always added how much extra, right? And I was like, I'm on a romantic holiday. Of course I'm going to put on a sundress, some sandals, and wear my makeup, and feel good. I don't want to go looking like I'm going to the gym or cleaning, working in the garden. I want to look like I am going out on a date 7 nights straight, and I'm with you. I've done an entire series. I think it was actually an entire season 2 of The Art of Creating Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And that beauty to me is not superficial. It's actually super fuel. That, you know, if my house feels good, if my yard feels good, if I look in the mirror and I like the way I look, I feel good. Like putting on a necklace or whatever that is on a given day. And, you know, and it can change and it can be different for each and every person. I'm not saying everybody should go out and buy lipstick, but, you know, being able to take our favorite products and easily in carry-on if we desire. But even as I always took my makeup carry-on because I had my luggage lost a few times.
I've had it happen too. Yes, I know.
And there's nothing worse than thinking, oh, okay, we are going to a wedding tonight and I have nothing to wear and no makeup or whatever the situation. Luckily, we were not going to a wedding, but I learned very quickly that if we're going to a beach, everybody has their bathing suit in their carry-on and flip-flops, because there's nothing worse than having, you know, UGG winter boots and a bathing suit. You know, like when you're leaving leaving 30-degree weather and then all of a sudden, you know, or whatever kind of winter boots. But yeah, so I love that. And I love the fact that you've always, you know, sought out what for some may have been the harder way, you know, which for me is the one that feels right and is right.
Yeah.
But for so many, they would have probably shied away from the things that you did, whether it be in your free time, and even with this product, like you said in the beginning, right? It's all fun and exciting. And then it's like, okay, there's this, there's that, there's
real.
There's everything from branding to patenting to
I have like patents.
UPC code. You know, it's like, oh, hold on, UPC codes. You know, you have 4 patents.
And let me tell you also about it. It's a very lonely process because it's not something that a lot of people understand. And I actually had people tell me, I had a friend who I'm no longer friends with tell me that you're just too much. Like, you're just too much. Like, you're too, like, who does these things that you do? And I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like who says that?
I'll tell you what that means. That means that you have outgrown your friend.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That it's time to, you know, as they say, my kids loved Madagascar. Smile and wave. Smile and wave, the movie.
Yeah, you're exactly right about it. And I am not friends with that person any longer. But yeah, it is a pretty lonely process, and it requires a lot of self willingness to that discipline. Drive in yourself. Discipline, and also that mental game. 100%. Nothing I did to invent a product was hard in the sense I wasn't out there churning plastic and prepping the molds, right? It was nothing like that. I found people to do that. The hard part was what went on up here in my head. That was the hard part. The rest of it was nothing.
Yeah. Well, I understand you, because there have been times where I say to my husband, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this podcast, this television. I can't manage the back end of my website. I can't manage 8,000 emails and do social media all alone, you know?
Yep.
And I think it happens to everyone, that's what my husband tells me, and I believe him. But feeling alone is not fun. That's a topic I touched on with somebody in a last week's episode. And it's finding, we do butt up against those people who, they could be very lovely people. Please don't get me wrong. But you have gone above and beyond that way of living.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do live like that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people make comments to me about that. And I think if you're open to it, Jenny, we should definitely discuss that on another episode.
Yes,
I'm going to write that down. So the just too much and the worthiness.
Yeah.
Definitely. I want to give a voice to that, because it's come up so many times, and everybody has a different, very, very different experiences. But being able to give it a voice from different angles, I think is really helpful and inspiring to so many. So you're invited back after this filming.
I love it.
I'm gonna hold you to it, and I'm gonna get on that calendar again. But and there's probably a slew of other things we can talk about, so I'll go back in my notes. But you are so inspiring to so many for so many reasons, and completely what's the word? Relatable, you know, on so many levels. And I think it's fun when we push ourselves to be the way you appear, which is what I call exquisitely aligned, the finest version of yourself, where you are too much for so many people, and just scratching the surface for yourself, right? Yeah. And you know, people, I was talking with a publisher this morning about a book that I'm co-authoring with them. And, you know, I was talking about a book for myself, and I was like, you know, this pressure from the outside. And I said, you know, I don't know that I really need my own book, because the honest truth is people either love me or hate me. There's usually no in between, because I am, like you, a little too much or over the top. I've heard it all for some people. And then other people, they flock to me and tell me I'm a breath of fresh air. So, you know, like, you know who your friends are when they come and say, like, I'm going to say to you now, Jenny, I adore you. I knew the minute we got on camera, whatever day that was, to just have a meet and greet, I was like, okay, perfect. I definitely want to talk with you. And now I'm going to tell you, I want to speak with you again. But with that, is there anything else? Let's say all of Jenny's information, contacts, so forth, how to find her awesome product so that you can travel and glow when you arrive, and the entire time that you're there, are in the show notes. But is there anything else you want to touch on? Because I was going to pull a card for you.
Yeah, let's pull the card. I'm excited about that.
Okay, so I'm going to pull from the Opening to Possibilities deck of cards. These are journal prompts, conversation starters, and you could use them for meditation or contemplation. I shuffled them before we got on, and I'm just going to do one more shuffle to be really, look at me, old-fashioned, old school. I need one of those little machines that or like at the bank where the money goes through, and counts it for you. So let's see if I can do this. I'm going to start shuffling, and then you just tell me when to stop.
Okay.
You know what? I did them the wrong way. I got to use my right thumb.
Stop.
Okay. Trust. Ooh, see how funny this is, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Every time. So trust. Trust grows as you surrender and believe in yourself and others. I think we've talked about this a few times. Mm-hmm. How would you describe trust? What experiences of trust have you had? How, I can read my own print here. How have they shaped your ability to trust? And you can answer 1, 2, or all 3. And this is so funny because we've touched on this, but we didn't, I don't remember if we used the word trust.
No, I don't think we did. And I think that's a really good way to round out what we've talked about today, because of all the things that we talked about, my journey, and I'm sure your listeners have similar experiences if they think back, it all came down to trusting myself, trusting the universe, trusting how I felt, learning to listen to that part of your body, of your intuition, of your energy, whatever you want to call it, is one of, we talked about other valuable life skills. I mean, that is one of the most valuable skills you can give yourself.
Yes.
Is to start trusting yourself. And I mean, again, in all of these things that we've talked about, these aren't one and done things, right? As you go through life, you're going to continue to have to work through these things, whatever that version is for you at the time. But I think the trust of yourself and belief, it goes a lot to belief too. But when you trust yourself, amazing things happen.
Yeah. And like you said, the red carpet rolls out, because I like that. It's so true. And we mentioned worthiness. We'll talk about that again, but it's like the red carpet rolls out and you're decked in whatever you like. I happen to like sparkly things, so diamonds, but it could be you're dripping in whatever, gold, silver, whatever, in an imaginary gown. I like to dress up, but it could be whatever it is you love in the most comfortable, fabulous, luscious clothing. And you're just walking down just.
Yeah, and everybody gets information around you, yes, right? The universe lines up for you. And that to me is like the best visual to explain it.
Yes.
The red carpet's rolled out, you're walking down it, everybody in the world gets information. And that doesn't mean you're doing it at the expense of others. No, it lines up for you. This is all a positive thing, and it lines up for you. And trusting in yourself that you can have that same experience as we've talked about, that we've had. And you can start small with that. Start small. I always tell people, if they're trying to work on their intuition or trying to do, work through this, start with something that's pretty insignificant, like a parking space.
Yes.
Let's say you're in a parking lot and you're trying to decide go left or go right to find a parking spot. Just use your intuition and do one or the other and see where it takes you. And you'll start to recognize that feeling, but start small. Don't, there's no, trying to start big often is too much. So start small and see where that takes you.
Well, it's funny you should use the parking space, because that's what I did with my husband. So I was like, come on, what is your he likes to drive when we go out, just the two of us or as a family. And I'm like, okay, you can drive. I do more, running around town during the week than him. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I know it's fun to drive. Go ahead. But I'm like, Mark, I feel your blood pressure rising. Just like, intuitively slow down the car and think, do I want to go right or left? Mm-hmm. And like start of course he's sitting there rolling his eyes, no, I just want to park the car and get to whatever we're doing. But it's so true. And each of these things are a journey. And when we approach them playfully, like you're saying, and in little pieces, in the morning, it's a parking space. In the afternoon, it's what do I want to order for lunch, or what make for lunch if you're at home, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it's these little tapping in. So I love that. And you've been such a delight. I love everything we've spoken about and how it relates so easily to living our best life and being our best self, and being too much for some, and not enough for ourselves, so that we continue that journey. I know years ago I read in a yoga book, it said that this one yogi said, if you're not learning something every day, then there's no reason really to be living. And that could relate to learning something about ourselves, pushing ourselves to go forward. And what did you say? 4 patents, And I know applying for patents is like,
that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. That's one that I probably won't join you on.
Yeah. Let me just say it's a lot and it takes a long time. But
yes, you have to be patient and jump through all those hoops and dot your I's, cross your T's 12 times, and that's probably why I won't be having that discussion. We'll talk, just like skim over the process. Yeah. But so anyway, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing, the ups, the downs, and all the life lessons in between.
Well, thanks for having me, Gina. It's been a wonderful conversation. I want to thank your listeners as well.
Perfect. You're welcome. And just to take a quick second, and any of those things that we touched on today, if you're struggling and feel like something is blocking you or keeping you from playing big and being too much for some people, I want to offer you Purpose, Possibilities, and Prosecco, a 2-hour transformation like no other. And I have to tell you, it's private and it's powerful. You can find more about that on the website and the show notes. Till next time, be exquisite.